Hi, I'm Eleanor, and this is the Germany Expat Business Show, the place for knowledge, stories, and inspiration for non-Germans running a business in Germany. And today I am talking with Emilia Puentes, who is a paper artist and a business owner here in Germany. So I'm going to give it to her, and I'm going to ask you the first question that I'm going to ask everybody is, what is the 2-minute version of how you ended up in Germany?
Yes, so I have to give you a little bit of a backstory. So my husband and I met when we were in college, like 2011. He's Colombian and I'm an American. He was doing his PhD, and in the lab that he was working at, he worked with a lot of German colleagues because his advisor is like German and South American. So like that group was like German South American group, and so he was learning about Germany. He wanted to like live here someday because he was like exposed to all of that. So that was like 2011. He was telling me a little bit about that. A lot of time passed, and we were living in Portland. And at that time, we were like, you know what? We've been wanting to travel for a really long time. And so let's do like this 1 year trip. Like we saved up a lot of money, and we're like, you know what? This is what we need, and it'll be super cool. And that was spring of 2020 that we decided we'll for sure go for it. Yeah,
Ta-da!
yeah. So we already like at that point we like let go of the lease of our apartment. Like we sold all of our stuff. We bought a one-way ticket to
Oh
London.
my gosh.
Yeah, and a week before we were gonna leave, the U.S. was like, "Oh, we are shut down now. Like, I'm sorry." So we're like, "Okay, what are we gonna do?" So what we thought was just gonna be a couple of weeks. You know, our friend took us in Portland, ended up being a little over a year. And we decided, you know what, now the world is opening up a little bit more. Like, you know, Europe was the first to open before everybody else.
Mhm.
So we decided, you know, let's try again. So that was 2021 that we started. No, 2022. Anyway, so we started to travel for a few months. And while we started, we're like, what are we going to do after this trip? Like, are we going to go back to the US? Like, do we want to see if there are opportunities out here in Europe? Like, what are we doing?
Mhm.
And so during that time, he saw that a connection, again, back in the university time, that was living in Germany, who was German, had a job opening. And so he had curiosity. I was like, yeah, dude, you should send him a message again. Like, you know, you should see what's up with this because he was hiring here in Munich. And a week later, he was like, you know what, you guys are pretty close. Like let's meet in Salzburg because we were in Italy at the time. He's like, let's go meet in Salzburg, and you know, we'll have dinner with the CEO. Like both of you guys come. They offered the job to him on the spot, and we both were there. So we were both like, okay, let's do it.
Wow.
So yeah, that was kind of like a whirlwind story. And I mean, obviously the job was like just for him, but I
Mhm.
took it as like the perfect chance to just like come and join and then do what I've been wanting to do for a while, which was freelance full time in a foreign country where I don't speak the language. So yeah.
Wait, so that was are you being sarcastic
Yes.
or were you okay, okay, just checking. I mean, you gotta ask. So yeah, tell me about that. I mean, had you when I look at your site, I see a lot of like projects for brands that are stateside. So had you been doing work already in the States, even though you like freelancing, or what were you doing there? And yeah, what
Yeah,
are you
so
going to do here?
I was freelancing. I've been freelancing for a while. Like I had a every even though I had like a job, I would do freelance projects on the side. Um, but during that pandemic and during that year and a half that we were
Mhm.
quarantined, I started to like pick it up. So there were a few months there that I was making things, and some of those brands stateside saw what I was doing, and they either like hired me to make something for them, or they saw what I made and they're like, hey, can we, you know, buy that video from you to use it for ads or something like that.
Okay, let's backtrack a sec because I know what you're talking about, but for the people listening, can you describe the things you were, two questions. So can you describe kind of the work you do? And then I'm curious, where were these brands seeing it?
Yeah, so basically, a little bit of a backstory on that is that there's this artist called Rachel Ryle,
Hmm.
Ryle.
Hmm.
And back in 2016 on Instagram, I saw her videos. She does like this really cool, like paper animated videos where
Hmm.
she's like in stop motion, where she's like cooking something or making brownies, something like really cute like that in paper form. And so at that time in 2016, I made something similar for the agency I was working at. Like I made a series of ads because I was like, hey, look at this artist. This is really cool. Like I want to do this for you. And so I like made this series of videos and I thought it was really awesome. And so basically like during the pandemic, I was talking about it to a friend, like, oh yeah, I'm getting into stop motion again. Like because I used to do these videos, and she was like, that is so cool. Like, you should totally continue to do like paper animation, things like that. And at the time, I was like, sure, like, I'll do things for fun. Like, I did something for May the 4th be with you, like a little baby Yoda, because the Mandalorian came out at the time.
Yeah.
I was just like making little things, something for my cousin too. And so, but that actually got brand's attention on Instagram
Okay,
specifically.
so you were doing this on Instagram. Okay.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, that was like a really big thing. I think because, the pandemic, right? I feel like
Right,
everybody
everybody was
was on
online.
social media.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you did you hashtag brands? Did you at them, or were people just discovering you? Like, how were they finding you?
I was tagging them. Yeah, I
Okay.
was tagging them. So
Okay.
that I think was really because when I found the stop motion community, that was the biggest thing that people were talking about.
Mhm.
They were just like, oh yeah, I made this, and you just at and tag them, and then I think that's why I really liked Instagram at the beginning,
Mhm.
like Instagram
Mhm.
pitching, because you
Mhm.
can get like most of the time you can talk to someone, right? There's someone on the other end and they're seeing your work and either passing it to someone or seeing it themselves and then talking among the company to see if they to see the work. So
Okay, I wanna actually dig into this a little bit. So, okay, what I think I'm gonna get it wrong, but you did one with a bike. Was it Canyon bikes?
oh yes, I did that one for fun actually.
Okay, okay. Well, let's take an example. Take one brand that you got work with through what they saw on Instagram. Like, who is one of those brands?
A Square, so Square saw that I
The
made this bit. Go ahead.
the payment Square.
Yes, the
Okay,
payment
yeah, the payment. Okay, yeah,
system.
go. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. So the payment system Square. So my cousin owned a plant shop called
Mhm.
Foliage Clovis. And so I was like, as I was, pitching myself and making stuff to pitch to brands, I made something for her featuring her shop and she uses Square.
Okay.
And so in the video, you can see like a square logo, like really mini on the payment system on the counter that I made. And so I tagged them in that video and then they saw it and they were like, oh my gosh, like, can we, have this video for like a future post or, and whatever it is that they wanted. And so I got to meet with them and talk to them and so yeah, they purchased the rights to that video.
Okay, that is super cool. And then so my then question after that is like, who was it, a art director? Was it a marketing person? Like, who saw it and who reached out?
It was a marketing person, I
Okay.
believe. Yeah.
Okay. And then so I just like want to know all the nitty-gritty. So then when they purchased the rights, did you already have a contract ready? Did you have a whole process for that? Or were you just like, oh,
It was a little bit of both because
okay.
and before that, I've had only actually before that, I did have a couple of other people ask for rights of the videos, but I think Square was like the biggest one. So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like, oh my gosh, how much do I charge for this? Or like, oh my gosh, like, do I need to have anything special in like the contract? But actually during that pandemic time that I mentioned where I found the stop motion community, I took a stop motion class by an artist
Mhm.
called Colette Perry.
Mhm.
And so this class was basically like stop motion business, right? This is
Right.
how you can have a business either in stop motion or something creative online. So she gave a lot of resources like contracts and like how to pitch on Instagram and things like that. So I was glad that I had that background there
Uh-huh.
to be able to get to that point. But when they emailed me, it was funny because we were traveling. I already made that video before traveling. So I was like,
Mhm.
we were like in Rome and I was like emailing and my sister was with us and I was like, oh my gosh, like Square just emailed me. What do I say?
That's so great. And it's just another uh, thing that makes me think of is just what a niche. This woman, what Colette Perry, is that her name was?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Stop motion, not just like graphic design or, stop motion as a business. Who knew?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm not surprised to hear it, but it's just like, wow, okay,
Yeah.
at that level, there are courses. Um,
Yes.
okay, so let's fast forward. You guys are in Germany. You've been getting track. So I guess you obviously left this agency job or whatever was going on in Portland when
Yes.
you went to
Mm-hmm.
travel. And so you're here in Germany, your husband has this job, and you say, okay, now what?
Yeah. I was like, okay, I guess now, like, okay, first I'll learn some German. So we started classes
Oh, yeah, that.
and then still a journey,
Yeah.
still
It
going.
never ends. Never ends.
So I was like, okay, we're doing that. And then, can I tell you, so I knew I was like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna do this like stop motion freelancing full time, right? So we moved here and we were in Zelb for the first month. That's like about 2 hours north of Munich, or maybe 3 hours. We were living in an Airbnb, um, and I was like, okay, so I want to pitch, but like I need more work. So I went all out and some of my savings from the US, like I started buying all my equipment. I got like my lights sent over. Um, I wish I still had pictures of my setup because I was in like the living room and like there were 2 or 3 couches and like one of those little kitschy like things around and like I was just on this little table that the lady had like at the Airbnb, like this kind of janky setup. But like actually the videos turned out good. I mean, even after Zelb, we lived in a hotel for a month in Munich as
Oh,
well.
wow.
And so I was making videos like in our hotel room and like this little tiny desk. I was like, no matter what, I'm just gonna like keep making stuff and I'm gonna, you know, get more active on LinkedIn. I'm gonna post on Instagram. Like I just need to get stuff out there to hopefully get attention from German brands. So it
Hmm.
was pretty scrappy at the beginning, but no one noticed. Everyone was like, you made that in the hotel room? I was like, yes.
Wow, that is great. So, um, one of the questions I have is if you were on Instagram, what made you get on LinkedIn? I mean, I'm on LinkedIn all the time, but I would assume it would be all TikTok, all Instagram all the time with such a visual business.
I heard at the very beginning when we moved here that TikTok was a pretty big deal in
Yeah.
Germany. I think LinkedIn,
Hmm.
and LinkedIn, and what's the other one? Zing,
Oh
XING.
yeah. I never go on that anymore for a minute. Well, maybe don't ask me. Maybe it is big, but that was like when they both came out and Zing was a German one and like I haven't looked at that in years. But
Yeah.
somebody told me LinkedIn isn't big in Germany. I bet who
Wait,
knows?
really?
Yeah, it's a friend at our kindergarten. She works for a large company and she's a recruiter.
Hmm.
And she was like, "Well, it's not that popular in the German market." But I
Oh,
like it because I feel like you can search for people by geolocation, which you
mhm.
can't do in Instagram. But
Right.
just sorry, it's a little bit of a tangent. But how are you? How have you found it in comparison to link Instagram?
Well, I found that LinkedIn so far, I've liked it a little bit more just because Instagram right now that, it's past pandemic time and
Hmm.
there's a lot more people becoming content creators, I feel like now Instagram is more saturated, right, with
Right.
people and content creators like just trying to message all the brands, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I want to stand out a little bit more,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess kind of be, I guess, a little bit more on the professional side. So
Right.
I feel like LinkedIn is more like, hey, I'm, you know, not that Instagram is not as professional, but
LinkedIn
it
is
just
like
feels a little different.
business. We're doing
Yeah.
business here. That's what I'm like. We all know why we're here. That's why I like LinkedIn. It's just like that's
Yeah.
what it is. Okay.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
okay, so you're making good work in a hotel room. You're scrappy, you're doing your thing, you're doing it.
Mhm.
So then what?
So then I actually, once we moved into our apartment, I had like the studio set up. I did actually land a couple of German brands, because at that time I was already like going through my um, freelance, applying for a freelancer online,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
which here I did it through a website called Sorted,
So wait,
sorted.de.
and look, I have to ask, what so you know, your husband's not German, you're not German. How was your visa situation? What was that?
Oh, yes. So actually, I got the visa through him because he was a professional, I guess, had like his doctorate degree.
Uh-huh.
I think you can get it if you have just like a university degree. You can get a
Mhm.
blue card when you
So
get
your
a
husband had a
German
blue
job.
card. Yeah.
So by default, I was also able to get the blue card.
Ah, okay. I've
Mhm.
just heard about these blue cards.
Mhm.
So does that automatically allow you to freelance?
Yes. So I can like
Ah.
work, I can freelance, I can, I guess,
Oh,
own a
that's great.
business.
That's
So
great. All
yeah.
right. Okay. So you had your blue card, and
Mhm.
so you were looking for freelance jobs through Sorted?
Mhm. No, I was using Sorted to apply as a freelancer. And so that was just one of the tools that I used, like as I was, like applying, or just as I was looking for people, I was also like applying, because Sorted doesn't take, Sorted, you're able to get the account, say you apply to be a freelancer, but it still takes like a couple of months to actually get your like tax number, and if you charge VAT, like your VAT
Oh,
number.
okay, okay, right. Oh, so you
Mhm.
apply to them to get all the paperwork, like okay, like you said. Okay, I get it now. Not you weren't.
Mhm.
It wasn't a job platform. I mean, I know what it
No.
is now, but okay, I get it. What you're
Mhm.
saying. Okay,
Yeah.
all
Mhm.
right. So and how did you get those first two jobs?
Instagram.
Okay, so
So, it was I think I was pitching to maybe like 10 to 20 brands a week at first, just kind of looking up, like, I think once I found, like, for example, one of my clients was Happy Brush. They're actually here in Munich.
mhm,
They make
those
toothbrushes, electronic
bamboo.
toothbrushes,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, electronic,
Oh,
and like
electronic.
toothpaste and things.
Hmm.
And so I think once I found one, I like looked under Instagram. If you click and think on the arrow by their name, you can see other suggestions, right? So then I kept
Ah, okay.
going down the rabbit hole, like, oh, okay, now there's this brand here, and like, oh, now this brand's in Germany. And so I decided to focus on Germany at first,
Hmm.
because I was like, you know what, like, I thought that that was maybe my best way to get the foot on the door here in the country, and I didn't know quite the rules on, me working also like in the US, right? Like pitching
Right.
to US brands here. So I figured at the beginning, I was like, maybe it's easier to talk to people here, because then they're hiring a German creator versus like maybe a US brand, you know, having to figure out how to
Right.
pay a German creator, right? So,
Right. And did I see True Gum? Is that one of the brands on your website?
oh, not on my website. No, I made that one. That one is actually the one I made in the hotel
Okay.
room.
It looks great. It all looks amazing.
I think actually that video got a lot of attention. I was able to secure a call with an agency based in in Germany, like an intro call based on that video because they're like, wow, it looks really great. So I just the simplest thing, I was surprised that it got me pretty far with that.
And the happy brush, when you would pitch, would you just say like, "This is my work," or would you do a thing specifically? Would you like go out and buy a happy brush and then do something with it?
So that was why I did the True Gum one because I was like, oh, I want True Gum and I want
Uh-huh.
them as a client. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to make something using their product and pitch it to
Mhm.
them. But no, for most of the brands, I just on Instagram I sent a post first, like, hey, this
Mhm.
is an example of my work or something, or like, hey, I'm an artist like here in Germany, like I'm from the
Mhm.
US, like I do this and that, like I would be interested in making content for you. Like, can I get an email?
Wow, good for you. Good for you. No, seriously, like, to come here and be like, just do it, like, in a hotel room and do 20 a week and just keep showing up and putting your stuff out there. That's how you make it happen.
Yeah.
So, respect, as the Germans say. Okay, so, now why don't you tell me about where you are now and what you started with a partner?
Yes. So now, basically, I'm like the co-owner of I call it creative production company, called Pairem. And so, a little backstory on how that happened is that I was working right full time, like my first year in Germany, like freelancing, doing all this pitching and stuff. Um, and in the meantime, I was like, okay, I need to make some friends. I was like, I don't know anybody over here. And so I signed up to like a few Facebook groups. And one girl named Natalie, who's my business partner, um, put a post and said, hey, I'm looking for creative people, like who wants to hang out or meet here in Munich. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I think 20 of us said, oh, yeah. And then I was the only one that showed up. So, so I was like, okay, this is great. But we had lunch together and we kept having lunches together. And at one point or a couple of times, I was expressing to her, like, kind of, little frustrations, like, oh, I want more clients, or, I don't know how to market myself.
Mhm.
Like, I've heard I need to start emails, but I haven't. Just, little things that I was a little overwhelmed with,
Right,
being one
right.
person. And she is actually a watercolor artist, a very talented creative. And so she's owned her own business before. She's from Singapore.
Mhm.
And so she expressed to me during one of the lunches, like, you know what? Like, actually, right now, I'm really passionate about helping people like you and creatives like you, like, build up their business from like that marketing side, and the business side. And
Mhm.
I was like, really? Because I definitely need the help. Um, and so we were talking a lot about how that would look like. I was just like, I don't have. I was like, I can't pay you. Like, I don't have like I don't have like consistent
Mhm.
like work every month. And she was like, and so basically we decided to then just start over in a sense
Mhm.
and say, you know what, like, let's take your work and your business and let's just like relaunch as a partnership so we can just like try and grow this together.
Mhm.
And so then we decided, like, okay, yeah, like, let's go for it and let's try it. So that starts that process of the GbR.
Yeah, yeah. So that a GbR, which I learned from you, um,
Yeah.
is a legal structure that's a partnership, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah, because I think it goes from like partnership to then I think there might be one even lower than GmbH. I'm not
I think
sure.
it's an UGA. I don't know. There's a
Yes,
yeah, something
okay.
like that. So what did that process look like? How'd you do that? How did you even
Oh my.
know that you needed to do that? Like, I would just be like, call my brother-in-law.
Right. Oh my gosh. That was a while ago. I am trying to think of what, like, I think all I knew was about GmbHs, right? I was
Right.
like, okay, like I know starting a business is like a GmbH.
Hmm.
So when we were just looking up like, well, how to start a business in Germany, that's when we found Firma, Firma. And so Firma is a German company and it's all in English. You can speak to them in English, but it specifically is for like expats looking to start businesses in Germany. And so on their website, it lists like GmbH, UGA,
Okay, right.
GbR. And so that's when we were looking at all the options. And I know that technically like GBR is the easiest one to like start, right? So we decided on that one because we're like, you know what, like we want to get this going and we want to see if it works,
Yeah.
and how we can work together for this. I think also the other ones you might need like sponsorships or
I
something
think
like
to start
that.
a GmbH, you need like 30 grand. Like it's
Yeah.
a big deal. It's not like an LLC in the States where you just like send some paperwork to Delaware or whatever and you've got a business. So
Right.
yeah. By the way, folks, links to firma.de and other resources in my special resource guide. There'll be a link to that in the show notes. But I want to back up and ask one more thing, a little detail thing. So this friend of yours, two things. What group was this that she posted in? Do you remember?
Ooh, I think it was Munich, like women's Munich expats. There's so
There's
many.
so many, but it was a Facebook group. It
Yes,
was
it
one of
was
the
a
expat
Facebook
face groups. Yeah, okay. And
group.
then your friend, had she been in Germany for a while or was she also relatively new?
She was about a year prior to me, so
Okay.
she was already a year in.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So you go to Firma, you get your GbR started.
Yes, that was an experience all in itself because they were really helpful because they actually like we told them, hey, this is what we want to do in our business, and they translated that whole paragraph for us and they put it in the form and they were like, okay, here's your form, it's like 90% complete, you just have to put a couple of details and then you can send it to this office. And we're like, okay, great. And then they were like, okay, then now the step after this is you have to apply for the tax number. So then they actually, to our surprise, they filled out, I mean, this is part of their thing, right? They
Mhm.
filled out like about 80% of the form for us already.
Oh
So we're
wow.
like, this is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing that they couldn't help us with was specific like tax questions,
Mhm.
but they have a lot of resources on their website. Like
Mhm.
they said, you know what, we can't help you with this specific tax question, but you can hire through us like this tax advisor person. You can either
Mhm.
have them for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever. So then we did like one afternoon, we were like, okay, with this person, we spent the
Mhm.
whole 30 minutes and he helped us fill out like the rest of the
Oh,
form.
that's great. That is
So we're like,
great.
this is perfect. Yeah, I mean, I was really, really glad because, not knowing the language quite yet, like, but you wanting to be here
Yeah.
and do business. I mean, I know that Germany, right, is trying to, I don't know, it just feels to me that they're really having a lot of resources for expats lately because they want to bring in more
They
people,
need to bring
right?
in more people. I have been astounded by everything that's out there. Um,
Yes.
can I ask how much that cost? Like just the
Oh my gosh.
process? Like ballpark. It doesn't be exact number, but it was like $100, 10,000, like or euros, I guess I should say. But like what does
I
somebody
think it
have to
was
expect?
Yeah, I think it was a few hundred euros
Okay, that's not
for
bad.
Firma, which is not bad. And
Yeah.
then the tax advisor is like an additional fee. That was like 89 euros for like half an hour. But that
Okay.
89 euros, we were able to like get it done.
Yeah, that's great actually.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yay, Firma.
Mhm.
Okay, so you got your GBR started, and what is the plan there?
So now basically, so I was doing a lot of like product stop motion, right? I did some paper stuff, but then like last year I just did product because I was like, oh, that's what all my peers are doing, like I think that's like where it is. Like I did a lot of product with Happy Brush and um uh Tartex, like it was product stop motion. So
Wait, sorry,
but when I
products versus what would you not, what if it wasn't products?
like paper only.
Oh, you mean I get it. Having the
Mhm.
physical
Mhm.
product within the paper art. Okay, got it. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was just like, oh, food or,
Hmm.
whatever, like
Hmm.
physical product. But when I was talking to Natalie about it and what we wanted Pairem to look like, she really heard in my voice, like how much I really loved working with paper stuff because like I, I always pitched it. I always had it out there. I always had paper stuff out there, but I was mainly contacted for the product only stuff,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But she was like, you know what? Like, let's just try to bring the paper aspect out more. And she was also passionate about paper as well and
Hmm.
like how to market that. So I was like, you know what? Then if we're going to be in this like new venture as a creative production company, let's like focus in this like paper thing. So we're starting to like we added like new different products and things. So I'm like, okay, now product launch kits, like all this crazy, like
Like,
cool,
what?
like
Tell me about
oh
that. What is that?
oh oh yeah. So product launch kit. So for example, like if let's say True Gum
Yeah.
wants to send like their influencers or something like a packet of gum to like market the brand, right? Then maybe they will use the services like, oh, we can design like the perfect like box or like box like paper experience, like something that comes out that's like a pop up or something like something that's more
Oh, like
special.
a physical thing that they send out to people, not like videos.
Mhm.
Okay, I get it. I get it. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so okay, like you said, they'd send it to influencers. It's kind of like the
Mhm.
old idea, like, oh, we're gonna send somebody a book that we make that's like, okay, got it, got it, got it.
Yeah, so
Ah,
that is like completely like new, right?
mm-hmm,
Definitely a new territory, but an exciting one because like, I've always done the studio stuff and I can make the paper videos like
uh-huh.
super awesome. Making physical products, like taking that stuff I make, giving it to someone else, like that's a whole nother level. And I think that, stands out. So that'd be really cool.
And that's a whole different ball of wax. You can't do that on a hotel table in a room. You would have to then, I mean, I presumably you are not making these by hand, so you'll have to source production people here to do this with. Is that like part of the process?
So eventually we're thinking like, maybe eventually if this keeps going or this goes the way that we want to, like we want to have a bigger studio space. And right now I just have my little my favorite tool is my Cricut machine. Shout out to Cricut because it's amazing. It cuts out everything for me. So I just need to
I
like
used to
paste
think
things
those were
together.
called cry cut. Took
Okay,
me a
that's
while
why.
to understand what a cricket was. When I was like doing invitation stuff, I was like, oh, this cry cut thing is a real big deal, but now I know it's cricket. Maybe tell people what a cricket machine is for those that
So
are
the
not in the crafting space.
Yes, so the Cricut machine is amazing. Basically, it's like all in one. You can cut paper, you can cut fabric, you can cut wood, you can score paper, the
Hmm.
scoring
Oh, wow.
wheel.
I didn't know you could do all that.
Yeah, you can tell it to write for you, so it can write like messages on paper for you as well. Like you put a pen, in the little
Hmm.
machine. Oh my gosh, what else? There's so many more
Okay.
things. I mainly use it for cutting,
Okay.
um, but it's a great tool. I love it. I have all these little accessories for it, so it's my favorite thing.
So I'm assuming you like can hook it up to your laptop and do vector art and it'll like cut out typography and stuff like that, like complicated
Yes,
patterns and all that. Okay.
yeah, Yeah, and I use mainly I use the iPad for that. So
Mm-hmm.
what I will do is, you know, if I'm drawing something or if Natalie drew something, then I'll outline it with it's so easy right on the iPad with the
With
Apple Pencil.
Procreate or
Yeah,
like a pen. Yeah, I was doing that for a while. It is amazing.
yeah, so I'll actually do it in Illustrator. So I have a background in graphic design.
Mm-hmm.
So Illustrator is like my BFF
Yeah.
in Photoshop. So I will like draw it on Illustrator so it has like the vector lines so I can get pretty exact on where I want the machine to cut. And then it's like Bluetooth connected to the machine.
Wow. And so can you do that at scale? Like say some brand says, we want 600 of these boxes, could you do that
Yeah.
with just your studio with a Cricut?
I don't see why not. But I'm
Oh,
leaked.
wow.
Why not
Okay. Okay. So
invent
you don't need to like go out into the German pampa and find some like paper cutting studio. You can do it on your own to some
Yeah,
degree.
I mean, yeah, I feel like maybe, I mean, but it probably take a little longer, but
Yeah.
I, especially like at the scale of things that I'm making, everything is like pretty compact and pretty small. I've
Yeah.
definitely seen some paper artists that, they print everything there and they just take their little pieces and have an assembly line, right? And just put things
Mhm.
together. So, yeah,
Cool.
that's
So,
cool.
that's really exciting. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you, kind of wrapping it up, a couple questions. What is one thing you wish you knew before you started?
I was thinking about this question for a while because I was like, what do I wish I knew? And I think the one thing I thought was if I had known maybe that like the stop motion or paper art was, popular. I feel like it got more of a boom during the pandemic. If I knew that it was popular before, then maybe I would have jumped on making things sooner. Because now these
Mhm.
creators who jumped on it sooner during the pandemic and now they're like educators, right? And they have their own
Right.
like big studio. And
Yeah.
so, I see like how they progressed to now, or well, they were already in that space, when I was learning.
Mhm.
But I don't like look back at that. I'm just like I'm
Yeah.
on my way to
Yeah.
like my goals. So
Mhm.
it's never too late. I always
Yeah.
say that. I feel like I say that a lot. Like it's never too late to like start something or try something because you just if you're passionate about it and you're excited about it, like go for it.
So you kind of just answered the second question, which is what would you tell somebody starting a business in Germany?
Right? Go for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, well, Germany is like in the center of Europe, right? Like it has its
Mhm.
advantages. Like essentially, you can work with the European market,
Mhm.
but also like, you know, specifically in Germany, like I just love that there are so many tools. So just lean into the resources and lean into like these tools and for expats and have a good time. I
Yeah.
think sometimes I
Yeah.
forget that. I forget that sometimes. I'm like, oh, I'm so stressed, like I need to do all this and I need to remember, like I'm being reminded by my business partner and my husband, like, just have a good time, like enjoy the ride, like if it was Farshing, the
Flushing?
festival
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Fashing, yeah, it was
Yeah, yeah.
Fashing, and I was like, Natalie and I both went out like one morning because they had like this little event, right? And
Mhm.
I was like, oh, this is great, just like enjoying it and just seeing the culture and get inspired by what's around.
I think that's good advice for any entrepreneur anywhere or solopreneur. It's so easy to get like, "Ugh, I got to do all these things and my email list and da da da, and I'm just gonna da da da." But it's like it can also be fun. You can also enjoy the process. That is a great, great reminder. Um, okay, I just want to ask. It's like I want to wrap it up, but I do want to have one question. So, what is there anything that's working well for you right now in terms of your outreach and what you're doing with your partner? Are you like strategically, are you leaning into LinkedIn? Are you keeping up the Instagram? Are you going to events like Munich Business. What is it? Munich Creative Business Week is coming up in
Oh yeah.
May.
Mhm.
Um, have you been around for that before?
I was here last year, but I
As
did not attend.
still kind of COVID-y. It's a pretty good
Yeah.
event. It's just because a lot of agencies in town open their doors and have presentations there, and it's
Mm.
pretty. I'm looking forward to it this year because COVID. It was just yeah whatever, and then before that my kid was pretty little, but it's kind of buzzy, and you can see a lot of what the scene here in Munich is like around agencies. So
Mm.
that's great. So
Mhm.
um, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, what is your kind of strategy for marketing Pairem?
Mhm. I would love to do Creative Business Week. We're already writing down like what kind of events. I think we just missed
Hmm.
Creative Meze Cricket. Like, was there Creative Meze that is
Oh, the
like I guess
Mesa.
a
Oh, yeah, that was here.
happy.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's once a year. We missed it this year, but we have it on the calendar for this next year.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that was the biggest thing. So I know I did a lot of Instagram pitching last year, but the calls that we've had and that I've had this year so far have been only network. I think
Aha.
we've pitched like one week. There was one week that we were pitching, and then we got maybe one call, but all the other ones have just been either people who I've talked with before, one person that I went to high school with, like a client that I worked with last year, the agency I used to work at. It's just like all like networking used to be a dirty word for me. I was like, I'm introverted, like
Oh.
I was like, oh God. But oh my gosh, like the power of networking
Yeah,
is
no
just
kidding.
so
No
big. Like
kidding.
everyone knows somebody
Yeah.
who can use your services. Like it's like amazing. So I feel like that is definitely gonna be that biggest like lean in this year. Because yeah, we each have like network and like people that we have known like either here or back in our home countries. So it's just going to be like a hey, this is what we're doing now. Even if it doesn't work for you, like let someone else know or
Right.
whatever. And I think it's going to be the biggest thing.
And so that is both within and without Germany.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And it's totally legit and cool for you to work with clients outside of Germany now that you're a big official GbR. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, because I think it's only an issue. So we learned this when we talked to the tax advisor.
Hmm.
So it's only an issue. This is why we're kind of delaying products for consumers. If
Hmm.
we were to sell products to consumers, if I made a paper product for people and like let's say France, like a lot of
Hmm.
people in France bought it, then technically we have to like oh, set up like this other separate like tax ID kind of a thing in France.
Really?
Yeah, so he's like, yeah, if you have like all these customers in another country, you have to like, have like this separate ID or something. So we're like, ooh, it sounds really complicated. So we're just like, but to pitch to like customers or agencies or brands, and just selling stuff to them
So if it's
is fine.
B2B, in other words, if it's B2B, it's not a
Yes.
problem. But if you're doing B2C, then okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I
Mm-hmm.
am a service provider and my clients are all over the world and it doesn't matter as long as I just
Mm-hmm.
get that VAT for the ones that are in Germany, which I
Right, right.
sometimes forget.
Oh, the vet.
But that's a service. I think, and I'm also obviously not a GbR. I'm just like a subständig or whatever. Okay, cool. So, where can people find you, Emilia?
Yes, so the website is Pairem, Pairem.co. And right now, actually, I just changed everything over on Instagram. It should be at Pairem.co.
That will all be in the show notes, folks. Thanks so much for coming on and having this conversation with me, Emilia. And we will talk again soon.
Yay, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for listening. You can find this episode and all other episodes of the Germany Expat Business Show at my website at www.eleanormeyerhofer.com/podcast. That's www.eleanormeyerhofer.com/podcast. MAYRHOFER.com/podcast. See you next time.